Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan.
I'm Damon.
And today we are going to continue our AFC, the last division in the AFC with the AFC South. And first out the gate is the most important team that we're going to cover all year. Okay, that's opinion-based, but the Indianapolis Colts. Last year, 2021, Colts finished 9-8. They were second in the AFC South. No playoffs. That hurts.
Not good.
That hurts.
Not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us felt like they were going to be better than 9-8.
I thought they could compete for a Super Bowl. I honestly did. But I thought Carson Wentz was going to be better than he was.
I thought he was going to be worse than he was.
And then I got thoughts on your coaching staff that we'll get to when we get to that part.
Okay, yeah, let's move on. Offensively, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, telling them that we both thought they were going to be really good. I mean, you always think they're going to be really good.
That's not true.
Okay.
When they had Curtis Painter as the quarterback?
If they haven't been just awful, you've thought they were going to be good. You have two settings for the Colts: really good or awful.
It was one year.
There's no in between.
There was really only one year. There's only 1 year I didn't predict them to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, it might be biased. Okay, all right. First off, offensively they were 16th in yards, 9th in points, which is really good. Again, let me just reiterate that I was not happy with Carson Wentz. Didn't want him coming to our team. I thought he played better than I thought he was going to play. We'll get a little bit more into that, but. All right, defensively, we were 16th in yards allowed and 9th in points allowed. It's interesting how that worked.
Yeah, that's a real odd one.
Yeah, just 16th in yards offensively, 16th in yards allowed, 9th in points offensively, and 9th in points allowed. I thought that was pretty fascinating. But anyways, our GM, Chris Ballard, has been around from 2017 to now. It's 5 years. Personally, I'm very happy with Chris Ballard. I think that he's a great GM, and I love pretty much everything he does.
And as a pseudo-outsider, I'm kind of not a real outsider because you suck me into it all the time, but I feel like I know way more about this team than I should. But as a pseudo-outsider, I also would give Chris Ballard high marks as a GM, very high marks as a GM. I think he's done an excellent job of fixing what was a mess by your previous GM, who was a terrible GM.
Terrible.
And I think that... we'll get into it when we talk about the additions of this year. I think he went around building a team using cap space and draft picks in a way that was he's been extremely intelligent, especially the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that in years past he stayed away from adding free agents and doing the offseason stuff for the most part. But when it gets down to it, he can adjust and he can change his strategy to fit what we need. I love Chris Ballard. I think he's a great GM.
Well, and I think the other thing, too, that we have to mention while talking about Chris Ballard is he was handed a tough situation with Andrew Luck retiring and the Andrew Luck injury situation. When he got the job, he thought he was about to form a team around one of the best quarterbacks in the league, entering the prime of his career, and instead that guy was hurt and retired on him. To be able to adjust, a lot of franchises that would send him back 15 years, and it seemed like it sent him back one, and that was it. And so I think you got to give the guy a lot of credit for being able to adjust to that and be where they are now so soon after that. Like I said, most franchises that sets them back a decade.
It's good adjustments. Okay, Coach Frank Reich, 2018 to present. That's 4 years. He's 38-30 in his record. My thoughts on Frank Reich. I like Frank Reich, I do. I feel like there are some things that maybe I'm hoping that he adjusts on. One of the biggest things, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but I feel like the analytics approach that he has is not my favorite thing in the world. I didn't mention this when I did the Chargers thing, but I feel like the Chargers coach kind of does this too. And look, honestly, I feel like Frank has cost us some games with the way that he goes about fourth downs.
You feel that way because he has.
I mean, he has. So, look, I love Frank Reich. I do think he's a good coach. There are some questions there, and I think we'll see at the end of the year. To me, if we don't make the playoffs for some reason, he's got to be on the hot seat. As much as I like him, I'm kind of anyways.
Yeah, so I'm going to chime in. I have become very skeptical of the Andy Reid coaching tree. We talked about this when we did Kansas City. Andy Reid is a fantastic coach. But Belichick's probably the best coach, and his coaching tree is very suspect and has not had a lot of success. And I feel like Andy Reid's coaching tree is very suspect. I don't know what it is about the way he goes about coaching, where these guys look like great assistant coaches but make bad head coaches. But whether you're looking at Peterson, our guy Nagy, the fact that the enemy hasn't been hired because people I guess from what the word is he doesn't interview that well, supposedly. I know a lot of people have different thoughts on that. I look at Frank Reich and I think he looks just like all these other guys. They get pass happy. They don't run when they should. They go for it on fourth down. They try all these weird trick plays and weird moments. And then they're also typically they lean towards conservative on defense, which I don't understand the mindset of being super aggressive on offense and then conservative on defense. I do think that your new defensive coordinator is more aggressive. It'll be interesting to see if Frank Reich lets him be more aggressive.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I would hope so too. But I think, when you're, like you said, when you're going for it on fourth down in weird situations, when you're refusing to kick a field goal, when you're up by, you're up by 14 points and a field goal makes it a 3-score game and you go for it on fourth down instead
and get stopped
and then lose by 3 points in the end.
I know.
Like, those things have happened over the last couple of years on multiple occasions that make me very suspect of Frank Reich.
That's the thing about last year. I felt like here's the thing. We ended up with 9-8, and I would say 4 of those 8 games, we were in that game. We barely lost those games, and those were against good teams. Our schedule last year was insane, and I would say a lot of that had to do with the choices that he made, not going for it with field goals.
Well,
when you're going into overtime against people nonstop, and you're refusing to go on field goals, and then you don't make it, that's a huge problem, and I hope that gets resolved.
From our family pick'em that I felt like he cost you guys at least 4 games because those were 4 games that I picked you guys, and he made me lose.
Yeah.
So so this is my one caveat I'm going to put on everything we talk about the rest of this video. I'm going to be with you, glowing praise, high expectations. My one caveat is I think Frank Reich is suspect as a head coach, and I think that all of these other teams that we talk about in the AFC have a better coach than you do.
Well, like I said, I like him. We'll just have to see how it goes. I hope he adjusts and changes some of his mindset because I do feel like there's some things he could do a little bit better. Okay, let's get into free agency additions. The first free agent addition is Stephon Gilmore, cornerback out of Carolina. Obviously, this guy is a stud. And now whether the question is has he gotten too old to still be a stud, or is he still a stud? Again, could be my bias, but I feel like he has every upside you could possibly have, and I'm super excited to have him on my team.
I think you should be optimistic. He had injury problems. As long as he stays healthy, I think he still has enough to at least be an above-average quarterback. At one point in his career, he was one of the top 3 or 4 quarterback corners in the league. There's no reason to think that he's not going to be better than what you've had in the past and be at a good level, if not that elite level.
Absolutely, and definitely that was a big problem that we had last year with our cornerbacks. Not even just the fact that the high play, I think the depth was a major issue because when you had injuries, even in any of our secondary, you were pulling people up from the practice squad to fill in. And as we go through this, you will see that being addressed. This was a huge address, and like I said, very happy with Stephon Gilmore. The next free agent is Nick Foles, backup quarterback from Chicago. Honestly, couldn't be happier about that as a backup. As a starter, maybe not, but as a backup.
Despite what happened, I would have liked to have seen more Nick Foles in Chi-Town, honestly. I never had a problem with Nick Foles. As well as I do, one of my favorite things that happened in the Nagy era was Foles going, "I don't care, we have to go faster." That was probably my favorite moment of the whole entire Nagy era. So I'm down for some Nick Foles, and like you said, I think as a backup, he knows this system. He knows what Frank Reich likes to do. He can help Matty Ice get more comfortable with that.
And it's similar playing styles, let's face it. You didn't bring in a running quarterback to back up Matt Ryan.
He's going to be able to do the same things that Matt Ryan wants to do. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. So, I think as far as a back, you couldn't do much better than him as a backup quarterback for your specific team.
I agree. And actually, to be honest with you, I kind of wanted him before to be our backup. I wanted him to be the backup to Wentz, which would have been fascinating.
I wanted that too because then we would have got draft capital out of it, but then they waited until they couldn't get draft capital.
As it turns out, I'm okay with it. All right. Then we got Brandon Faison, cornerback out of Vegas, again addressing the depth issue, which I think is extremely important here in our secondary. And Brandon Faison comes over with Gus Bradley's system. He knows, he's familiar with it, and I think it's great to bring over. He's going to be a depth player. This isn't going to be a starter, but obviously, if he brought him over, he feels like he's knowledgeable to his system and probably is a good teacher. Somebody that can help a lot of these young players that we have at that position. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, always good to have depth.
Rodney McLeod, free safety out of Philadelphia. Again, dressing depth here in the secondary. I don't know a whole lot about Rodney McLeod. He definitely seems like just a depth player, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But again, we were bringing people up from the practice squad last year, so let's add depth to that position, and obviously they did. Dennis Kelly, right tackle out of Green Bay. Again, adding depth to our line.
He's a solid right tackle. Like that, he's not bad.
And we have a very good offensive line. So even if you're grabbing these players, like you said, if he's a decent player, I'm happy to have him as somebody that we can plug in if we need to. Brandon King, again, free safety out of New England, addressing that secondary. This is the theme of our offseason here. Again, Brandon King's not somebody I know a whole lot about. I'm sure this is depth, but we need that. So. Armon Watts, safety out of Kansas City. I do think that this guy has a lot of upside. And again, added depth to that secondary. Philip Lindsay, running back out of Miami. I feel like this is a bit of an underrated free agency grab.
I agree. I really like Philip Lindsay. I think he's one of those like sneaky good players that gives you. He's not a star. He's not a big name. But he'll make a play here, play there that can make the difference in winning or losing a game. And when you add him to what you already have at the running back position,
that's crazy.
He can do some fun things, coming out of the backfield, catching the ball, on reverses, maybe even line up in the slot. Some if they want to get tricky, which we talked about earlier. One of the things that your coach likes to do is get sneaky and play the tricky plays. I think Lindsay helps add pieces to the board.
Absolutely, and I feel like Philip Lindsay. Absolutely, in that passing game is going to add something. We obviously have a pretty crowded backfield. It's going to be interesting to see who stays on the team, who makes the team, who gets cut, and stuff like that. But when you take Philip Lindsay and you add him into with Nyheim Hines, there is some talk that maybe Nyheim Hines gets moved over to the slot. Maybe they interchange these two in that position. But I agree with you. I think that you have a very intelligent quarterback coming in with Matt Ryan, and I think that he can utilize these guys in the passing game, and then obviously you have the beast running in the back. So it's a good addition, and I'm happy with it. I'm going to mess this name up. Ifeadi Adanaga, defensive end out of Cleveland. Our defensive end group is a little bit crowded, so this is a good backup. We'll see if he makes the team. Just be a good rotation player, I'm sure. We have quite a bit there for rotation. So, Jason Spriggs, tackle out of Atlanta. Again, I'm never going to complain about them adding depth to our offensive line, which has been a problem in the past. Hopefully our starters stay healthy, but if they don't, I'm glad to be adding people like this onto our team. Plus, he's familiar with Matt Ryan, so maybe there's some
yeah, if I remember right, Spriggs is a guy that's been around a bit. If he's who I'm thinking of, he was on the Bears for a little bit. He was on Green Bay for a little bit. Never quite good enough to be a starter, but a high-level backup tackle, like swing tackle, can play both right and left as a injury replacement kind of guy. I think he's pretty good.
Which is good because our starters are good,
yeah.
But if they get injured, we have had problems with depth in the past. So I'm happy with all of these. Brian Cox Jr., defensive end out of Buffalo. I do think that this guy has some upside. Obviously, again, depth, just like...
Is this Brian Cox, the former linebacker for the Dolphins?
Maybe.
Because if that's who it is,
Brian Cox is a beast.
Brian Cox was gnarly, man.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
I don't know that it's even if he is his son. I'm not sure that this guy's on that kind of a level.
Because I know Brian Cox is gnarly.
No, but again, depth and Brandon Kemp, tackle out of Tennessee. And I think that this guy has some upside too as well. I think we've done a really good job of adding that depth at these positions.
Yeah.
Tyson Williams, running back out of Baltimore. again, it'll be interesting to see who makes the team and who doesn't. We have a crowded running back. If I were to bet money, I would bet that this is one of the guys that doesn't make it. But that's just my own opinion.
And they're ready to move on from Taylor.
Yeah, that's not happening. You want to see me get upset? That would be the quickest way to see me get upset. All right. Free agent losses. We got Mark Glowinski, guard, going to the Giants. Again, this is just, backups. George Odom, safety out of San Francisco, or to San Francisco. Again, Odom, I don't think ever really lived up to what we thought he was going to be. I'm okay with him leaving. He probably just didn't fit the system, and I like the new safeties that we've brought in. So, not upset with that. Al-Quadin Mohammed, defensive end to Chicago. I feel like he's a lot better than people gave him credit for. He had a whole lot of upside.
I'm happy about where he went.
I mean,
I liked him.
I would be if I was a Bears fan. I would actually be excited about this guy. I do think he adds something, but you can't keep everybody. We have a big defensive end group, and we brought the depth in. So losing Muhammad was a little bit, but at the same time, that's just business. You know what I mean? Chris Reed, guard to Minnesota. I wasn't the biggest fan of Chris Reed, just to be honest with you. So I'm not upset about that. Marlon Mack, running back to Houston. I feel like, yeah, again, our running back, we're good. I do think Marlon Mack is good. I think Marlon Mack is a little bit slept on. I think he's better than people give him credit for. But we don't need him. We have that slot filled.
And I think he's a guy that wants to try to be a starter, and he knows he's not going to be behind Taylor.
That's right.
So maybe a little disgruntled, maybe not outwardly disgruntled, but just inwardly feeling like there's no path to starting. That can sometimes have a toll on even the best of guys. So,
and I mean,
he was a starter too, so he knew what it was like to be a starter. Had that taken away from him, so probably best that he moves on.
It is. It's best for everybody, and probably a good thing for Houston too. We'll get into that when we talk about Houston. Okay, Kamoka Toure. He's a defensive end that went to San Francisco. Honestly, this is probably the one I this one and the next one are probably the one that I dislike the most. I would have liked to have kept Toure. Toure has a high motor. I think he had some injury issues, and I think that was a big problem. Again, we have good defensive ends. We've addressed that issue. So it's not like a huge thing, but for depth, I would have liked to have kept Toure. We'll have to see how he does in San Francisco, but that's a guy who I did like, and I'm a little bit that he left, but it's not a huge deal. Zach Pascal, wide receiver to Philadelphia. I would say, for me, this is the biggest issue I have. And this was the biggest issue that I did not want him to leave. Our wide receiving core does have some skepticism. It's got some issues. If you look at the numbers, Pascal actually was probably our best wide receiver for the last, 2 or 3 years. So, he was very consistent. Is he a number one? Obviously not. But he was very consistent in pass catching. I think he did a whole lot to be a... like I said, just a consistent player. And he put up, I think, better numbers than he should have. Let's just put it that way.
I think you upgraded him in the draft.
Maybe, but I still would have liked to have had him on our team for depth. And it is what it is. Philadelphia was looking to change their wide receiving group, and I think, to me, this was a good addition to them. And somebody I'm going to miss, but it is what it is. I'll have to trust our wide receiving core and have to trust the GM to do his job. So. Isaac Rochelle, defensive end, went to Cleveland. He came over from us from the Chargers, I believe. I was never really excited about this guy anyways. It didn't really work out last year. He didn't do much for us, so no big deal. Matthew Adams, outside linebacker, went to Chicago.
Big loss for you guys. Kid's about to break out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Stud.
Yeah,
Stud.
Honestly, if you've played for my team and I don't know much about you, I think it says a lot. I really don't know much about Matthew Adams, so it is what it is. Taylor Stallworth, the defensive tackle, went to Kansas City. Again, here's this a guy who's good at rotation. Never really panned out a whole bunch, but probably a good addition for Kansas City. Maybe we'll miss him a little bit in the depth, but not a huge deal.
I think one thing you're seeing too with a lot of these defensive ends moving on is that you guys are switching the way your defense works.
Absolutely. And
the kind of defensive end that will fit Bradley's system doesn't exactly line up with the one that you guys were running before. So I think there's a lot of the turnover at that specific
good players or at least good enough players.
Solid depth, but they weren't going to fit the system, so it was time to let them go.
That's right.
And then you brought in guys that will fit the system better, I think is what you're seeing.
All right. Julian Davenport, left tackle to Chicago. Again, I don't know. I was not very happy with our backup and our depth at offensive line the last couple of years. So
Yeah,
I'm
but
okay
you got to
with these
admit,
guys.
Davenport was crushing people.
You just hope that he is. He'll be a depth player for you. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Okay, now let's get into trades because this is where some of the juicy stuff happens. Obviously, the number one trade here, Matt Ryan, quarterback from Atlanta, for a third-round pick in the 22nd draft.
Hold on. Before we go further, what did I text you when this happened? Do you remember?
No.
Milk toast.
Milk toast.
And why did I text you that?
All right, just to get into it real quick.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Damon has always been a big fan of Matt Ryan and thought that he was a little slept on. People kind of overlook him. I haven't been the biggest fan of Matt Ryan, just to be honest with you.
He called him milk toast.
I did call him milk toast.
Always. For years. Milk toast. Milk toast.
He seems vanilla.
That's milk toast.
He seems vanilla
Milk
and
toast.
boring to me. I don't know. When you go and look at his stats, I think you can be shocked and surprised at how good he is as a quarterback because it's easy to look past them. I'm not sure he's always had the greatest teams there in Atlanta. I don't think that they do as good of a job building the team. Obviously, everybody knows about the Super Bowl and the loss in the Super Bowl that they gave
not his
up.
fault.
I don't think it was his fault either. I really don't. And even in the moment, I didn't think it was his fault. And the more and more Damon convinced me that Matt Ryan was a good quarterback, the more I had to recognize that he is a good quarterback.
Aided greatly by him putting the horseshoe on.
Okay, so there is a whole lot of talk about Matt Ryan as far as age is concerned and things like that. Look, the guy has barely ever been injured. He has been about the most consistent quarterback you could possibly have. Literally from year to year, his stats always look the same. Last year was is the first time he's been even under 4,000 yards. I think
And
since like his
barely.
first, yeah, and it was just barely. And I think it was since his first or second year.
Yeah.
Every other year it's been over 4,000 yards. You can't complain about the guy, and I think people do sleep on him. Again, I'm one of those people that did. I think he's going to bring some intelligence to a team who's ready to win a Super Bowl and some consistency there at that position that we haven't had since Andrew Luck.
And not just a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl. He's a guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's a guy that's ready to win. Like, he needs to win a Super Bowl or two. If he wins 2 Super Bowls with you guys and matches that with the stats he has,
Yeah.
he's going to be taught. Like, people are going to quickly go, wow, I didn't realize how great Matt Ryan was.
Yeah.
You got to have those Super Bowls. But his stats, you go look them up. Go look up. We're not going to tell you. You do some work on your own. Go look up career passing yards and see the names that are above Matt Ryan and some of the names below Matt Ryan on that list.
Yeah.
It'll shock you.
He's
I
better than
guarantee
people
you.
think he is.
I guarantee
He
you
really
it'll
is.
shock you where he's at on that career passing list, career passing touchdown list. The guy is a player.
And really, if you think about what was available to us, at one point in time, I was talking about the best of possibilities that we had were your boy out of Chicago, Trubisky. And then maybe Baker Mayfield, when Baker Mayfield said, now, would I have been upset about Baker Mayfield? No. Am I happier that we got Matt Ryan than Baker Mayfield? Yes. Slightly. But yes, I mean, maybe not even slightly. Like, I'm excited about it. So I am happy about the Matt Ryan trade.
I mean,
think
to
it was
me,
great. Best possible option.
Not only was he the best possible option this year, he's better than Carson Wentz. And if you don't think so, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Yes.
Like, go, again, look up those numbers. He's better than Phillip Rivers. People might not like to
Agreed.
hear that. I
And
guarantee you most of you are saying, oh, this guy's crazy. He's better than Phillip Rivers. His career has been better than Phillip Rivers.
I feel like he's on par with Phillip Rivers. I feel like by the time Phillip Rivers got to our team, he was past that point. Matt Ryan is not. That's my opinion on it. And you know that I felt that way when Phillip Rivers came to the team. I feel like he was over the hill. I do not feel that way about Matt Ryan. I would say that they're probably pretty comparable players. A little bit of a different style. He's more conservative. Obviously, there was a lot
I think he's better than Phillip Rivers because he's not going to throw interceptions.
Yeah, but he's also not.
Their
Phillip
yardage-
Rivers was putting like 5,000 yards up a year. And
Go look at Matt Ryan. There's a lot of pretty dang close to 5,000 yards and a couple that were over.
anyways.
I'm just saying.
No
The guy can
disrespect
play.
to Phillip Rivers
The
for
guy
me.
can
I
play.
just felt like he was over the hill when he got us.
I don't think it's disrespectful for Phillip Rivers to say Matt Ryan's better than him. Other than people think that that's disrespectful, but it's not.
Anyways, there's our GM pulling out a very good trade when we, as a fan, thought there
And-
was absolutely nothing going
And
on.
he didn't even give up anything.
No,
Like, it was
a third round in the
ridiculous.
22nd.
Ridiculous.
Agreed. And real quick, this is starting to take too long, but I do want to say that I feel like we were the beneficiaries of the Deshaun Watson thing. I think of all of the teams that were involved in all of this stuff and all of the different dominoes that came down, the people who benefited the most were us. First off, you have what, in my opinion, was the most dangerous quarterback in the South probably since McNair. You know what I mean? When I look at the quarterbacks that we have had in the South facing us, McNair is the last one I can think of. He was the best one that scared me. He was the only one that actually worried me, and he's gone. He's out of the AFC South. I'm excited about that. Then he's going to go to Atlanta. This ended up making Matt Ryan go, okay, I want to leave. When they didn't get him, Matt Ryan was like, that's okay. I'm still going to move on. And I was excited about that. Then you take a team like the Browns, where if he doesn't play this year, they soak all of that money. They are a danger to us. They are a team that I look at as somebody that could be a block in our way. And if he doesn't play, they're not a block anymore. So thank you, Deshaun Watson. Anyways, appreciate that. Now on to, sorry.
No, I was going to be smart.
Yeah.
Let's let it pass. Let it go.
All right, Yannick Ngakoue. This is a defensive end that came over from Vegas. Obviously, he is familiar with Gus Bradley's system. Gus Bradley must have thought that he was a good enough player to bring in. They traded him for Rock Ya-Sin, a cornerback, who, in my opinion, never really lived up to the hype. I actually really wanted Rock Ya-Sin on our team when we drafted him. I was excited about him being on our team. The guy is not a terrible player. He really isn't. But he makes stupid boneheaded errors, and there was so many times last year when I was watching, and the last couple of years, where you just those little errors. Again, we barely lost these games, and those little errors can cost you, and he did make quite a few, and you knew that because of the way that I talked about it as we were building the game.
Yeah, there was times like this is a frequent over the last few seasons Sunday afternoon occurrence. Oh, who gave up that? I bet you that was Rock Ya-Sin that gave up that touchdown. Watch the replay. Oh, Rock Ya-Sin. Told you.
Yeah,
Told you.
Penalties, too.
Told you.
Like penalties.
Or penalties, yeah.
That was, I think, the biggest issue. You know what I mean?
No, but there would be a lot of times where you would get mad and say, I bet you that was Rock Ya-Sin. Replay happens. Told you. That's the only reason I know who Rock Ya-Sin is.
And I really like Ngakoue. This was a guy who played on the Jaguars. I wish he would have been on our team earlier. I'm very happy that he got on our team now. He's a consistent player as well, and this is going to be a great addition to our defense.
And he's going to help last year's first-round pick, Kwity Paye, be better. Like, you were a little bit disappointed about his production. I think this will help him reach his potential better because, one, even just having the guy in the building, being able to talk pass rush, being able to learn some moves and some
a guy
tricks.
familiar with the system already.
Yeah, so that's going to benefit him.
Yeah.
But also having that guy on the other side, the defenses have to account for, that can push the quarterback in your direction sometimes. It's really going to help Kwity Paye, I think. And it gives you guys maybe not a duo on the level of like the Chargers and the Raiders, but one of the better pass rushing duos in the NFL.
Absolutely. And then obviously the trade for Carson Wentz to Washington. Okay, it was Carson Wentz with a 22 second round and a 22 seventh round for a 23 third round or second, depending on the snap count, and a 22 second and a 22 third. I felt like we did give up quite a bit for Carson Wentz. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, I felt like we turned it around. I feel like
You basically traded Carson Wentz for Matt Ryan and got an extra third-round pick out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's essentially what happened.
Again, our GMing is amazing. To be able to take a guy who, again, I wasn't happy with him. I didn't want him. I didn't want him on our team. You can attest to that. Not from the word go. You convinced me a little bit. I actually felt like he played better than I would have thought that he did. He had way less turnovers.
And we will get into Carson Wentz when we do the Washington one. We'll kind of debate that. But, yeah, I think – but even regardless of the upside you think Carson Wentz might have, the most optimistic version of Carson Wentz you have, Matt Ryan has proven to be better than that.
Absolutely. And I felt like even when we talk about those games and Frank Reich and all that stuff, and I do think that there's a lot more on Frank Reich than people think. And Carson Wentz himself, he didn't make a ton of mistakes. I think it was when he made the mistakes. He made mistakes in game time, crunch time situations where the game was on the line, and that's when he made his mistakes. So he didn't make a whole bunch of mistakes, but timing.
And maybe having Matt Ryan will allow Frank Reich to become a better coach because he'll trust the quarterback position more.
I hope so.
And he'll let Matt Ryan make some calls on the field and maybe feel like I don't have to take the risk that I'm taking because all we got to do is play solid defense and get the ball back to Matty Ice and he'll score eventually and not have to feel like he has to force issue. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like I said before, that's the one question mark I have for your team.
And one thing I can say about Matty Ice is that he's not going to put himself in a position where he breaks both of his ankles, sprains both of his ankles on one play.
But unlikely. Very unlikely.
Carson Wentz, I would be surprised if
Very.
he doesn't do that again in his career.
Very unlikely.
Okay. Let's get into the draft. Round 2, we got number 53, Alec Pierce, wide receiver out of Cincinnati. I've already done my draft cover, so I don't want to get too bad into these. But I absolutely love Alec Pierce. Yeah. I loved him in college. I thought he would be a great fit for our team, and boom, our team went and got him.
Let's just real quick just get this out of the way. If you want to know, go watch the draft video. But nuts and bolts of it is, we both thought the Colts had a great draft, filled some needs. Gave Carson Wentz, I can't believe I said that. Gave Matty Ice some new weapons to play with that he'll get familiar with, and will complement your boy Pittman. And
as much as I love Pittman, I think Pierce possibly could become the number one.
And the tight end, I love Jelani Woods as the tight end.
Okay.
So that was, let's just skip through that real quick because we got more to say. But the end result, go watch the draft video if you need to.
Yeah.
We both really love this draft and the way these players fit into the Colts team.
Round 3, number 73, Jelani Woods, tight end out of Virginia. Again, we both like him. Round 3, number 77, Bernard Raymond, outside offensive lineman out of Central Michigan. Like him. Athletic, very good fit for our team. Round 3, number 96, Nick Cross, safety out of Maryland. Love him. Absolutely love him.
You should definitely watch the draft video to hear his thoughts on Nick Cross.
I love him.
One of the best things we put on tape.
And honestly, I think this guy is underrated. He fits with the system. Colts fans, you're going to love this kid. I guarantee it. All right, round 4, number 159, Eric Johnson, defensive lineman out of Missouri State. Guy that you were very high on, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a great apprentice to DeForest Buckner. I think he's got the potential that he could be that kind of player down the road, maybe, and it'll be good for him to learn from DeForest Buckner and give Buckner some breathers.
Yep. Round 6, number 192, Andrew Ogletree, tight end out of Youngstown State. Again, from what I read about the kid, he does have a lot of upside. Who knows how far he is in that potential, but he does have upside, so adding him in the tight end's good. Round 6, number 216, Curtis Brooks, defensive lineman out of Cincinnati, underrated. Just underrated. I'm just going to say that. We got him in round 6, and
watch the draft video.
Watch the draft video. Love the kid. We're in round 6, and I'm super excited about this stuff. Round 7, number 239, Rodney Thomas, the second cornerback out of Yale. I don't know much about the kid.
I think he's highly intelligent from what I can understand.
I would imagine. So, more depth to our cornerback position. Okay, now we're going to get into starters. We didn't want to spend too much time on the draft because I already have a draft video out. Like Damon said, go watch it. You'll love it. All right, Colts starters, 2002 projected starters. We have Matt Ryan. Last year he had 3,968 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 82 rushing touchdowns, 82 rushing yards, and a touchdown. This is his lowest number since 2010.
On a team that was extremely suspect, where they even knew they weren't, they were done. This is rebuild mode. They were in rebuild mode already, and he still puts up those numbers, and he didn't complain. He didn't try to force his way out. He didn't go, I want to be traded because we can't compete for playoffs.
Never did.
Didn't do that until they wanted to trade him, until they were looking to move on, and he said, fine, then let's move on.
Okay, let me see if I can pinpoint. Yeah. And let me tell you something. If you're a Colts fan and you haven't seen the interview with him on Pat McAfee's show, go watch that. It's great stuff. Great stuff. And he talks about that. He said, if it wasn't for the Deshaun Watson thing, I probably would have stuck it out in Atlanta. But because the options came, and you know what team he said that he wanted to go to from the get-go? Us. He said, you look around and you were like, this is the team. So anyways, I'm excited about that. Running back Jonathan Taylor.
Now, what did he do? Because I feel like I remember hearing his name a few times.
1,811 yards and 18 touchdowns.
Wow.
That's production. 360 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on top of that. Jonathan Taylor is a staple, and I cannot...
I just remember when he got drafted, and I said, you're going to love this kid.
And it
was a quick situation where you went from, I don't know that much about him, to, I love this kid.
Now, there's another running back we're going to be talking about here in the South that might be the only running back that's better than him. But it ain't that much better than him. I mean, those numbers are ridiculous. This guy's ridiculous, and I hope that we lean on him.
And that's with the coach that tends to not run as much as he should.
I agree. I think he made
let's think about that. There was probably more yards to be had.
All right, Michael Pittman Jr. Last year he had 88 receptions for 1,082 yards and 6 touchdowns. But I got to be honest with you, I feel like Carson really was on purpose being conservative with the way that he threw the ball because he didn't want to make those mistakes. He didn't want to be seen as the guy that is loose with the football. And I think that Michael Pittman suffered from it. I really do.
Can we use the words touchy subject when it comes to Michael Pittman?
I mean, I love Michael Pittman. I wanted him on our team from the get-go. I loved to watch him in college. He was somebody that we picked who I wanted.
He doesn't like anybody to tell him that Michael Pittman's not a number one. Look, here's the thing. We had this debate earlier this summer. I kind of question whether Michael Pittman should be a number one. I'm a big Alex Pierce guy. Watch the draft video. You'll find out what I think about him. I think he's going to be the number one. And I think Michael Pittman will be a fantastic number two, like a high-level number two.
I get the speed thing.
So you challenged me on that. I went back and watched some video, and look, Michael Pittman's a good wide receiver. Whether he's a mid to low-level number one or a extremely high-level number two, I'm not sure. There's no way I'm putting him in the high-level number ones. He's not that category. But he's a good wide receiver. I will give him that. He catches a lot of balls thrown his way. And, like you said, those stats are not bad.
No. Alec Pierce obviously was a rookie. He didn't have any stats. But next year when we talk about him, I bet you them stats look pretty good. And I think Michael Pittman's going to be better because he has Alec Pierce on the other side of him. Wide receiver Paris Campbell, 10 receptions, 162 yards, and a touchdown. If you're a Colts fan, I don't need to explain to you. The guy has been injured from the word go. He literally has. He hasn't done anything, okay? Talent-wise, I absolutely love him. And if he could stay healthy, this dude is going to be a threat on... He is. Like, when he's on the field, he's a threat on every single play. He really is. He's a home run hitter. But he cannot stay healthy.
He was an absolute stud at Ohio State, so...
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Am I skeptical that he can stay healthy? Yeah, obviously.
You know what the good news is for you, though? You don't need him this year. In the previous years,
yes,
you needed him to be a big player. I think with the additions that you've had, you don't... And also with a good quarterback that can maybe get more out of his wide receivers, I don't think you need him. So if he provides it, woohoo. If not, that's okay. It won't hurt you as much this year as it's hurt you the last couple, in my opinion.
Yep. Tight end Moali Cox, 24 receptions, 16 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This is a guy who's still raw. I mean, he's not
going to be the starter the whole season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that what we've done with the tight end room, anyways, even if you look at Granson from last year, I'm not sure Granson's ever going to be a top tier tight end either. But he is a weapon that we can add and we can use. I think that the skill sets that all of the tight ends that are on our in our group bring, you can get fun with your play calling, and you can utilize them in ways that other teams maybe don't have at tight end. We don't have a true blocker, in my opinion, but at the same time, the weapons and the tight end room I think is exciting. So, and I do like Moali Cox. I don't think he's a top tier tight end, but I love what he brings as far as athleticism.
I love the tight end you guys drafted, so I think he's going to be a big time player.
Absolutely. All right, and then obviously we still got Matt Pryor at left tackle, Quentin Nelson at left guard, Ryan Kelly at center, Danny Printer at right guard, and Braden Smith at right tackle. It's a high-level offensive line. If they can stay healthy. If they stay healthy. I mean, and again, like I feel
you improve the depth in case
we improve the depth.
Sure.
So things to be excited about on our offense. All right, defensively, we've got the defensive end that we picked last year, Kwity Paye. He was a rookie last year. 32 tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. Would have liked to seen some more production out of him. I believe we absolutely
You'll see it this year. Yeah,
absolutely. Plus, they changed the style of play that he did from college coming into the pros, and there's an adjustment period there. I have high hopes for him. Left defensive tackle, DeForest Buckner, 68 tackles, 7 sacks, 3 pass deflects. I actually think that those numbers are going to improve in Gus Bradley's system. I think he fits very good at what they do, and he's been about one of the best trades that we've had in a long time. So I very much like DeForest Buckner. We got Grover Stewart at right defensive tackle, 46 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 2 pass deflects. He does have some injury issues, but when he's on the field, he is a space eater, and I feel like he's a very high-level space eater, so I like him a lot as well. And then we have the right defensive end as Yannick Ngawe, 28 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 pass deflects coming over from the Raiders. Very consistent player. If you go look at his sack,
10 or 11 sacks.
Yeah, 9, 10, 11 sacks every single year, and has been that way since he entered the league. Don't expect that to change, and I'm happy with that. And then obviously we have at linebacker Darius Leonard, 122 tackles, 0 sacks last year, 8 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions, and 8 pass deflects. Obviously, the sacks aren't there, but everything else is.
He has what we call a nose for the ball. He just finds the ball.
8 forced fumbles. I mean, first off, he's if he's not the best linebacker in the league, he's the second best. Or he is a top tier player. And obviously, if you're a Colts fan, I don't have to explain to you, the guy's a beast. It's a maniac, literally. Okay. Then we have who I think is an extremely underrated player, Bobby Okereke. Okereke. I'm sorry, it's Okereke. 132 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and 4 pass deflects. I don't think this guy gets talked about enough. 132 tackles. That's
Sounds
a lot.
Like he gets talked about a lot by the announcers saying who sacked or tackled somebody.
132.
That's a lot of tackles.
It is. Between him and Darius Leonard, we have a very good, at least in that side of the line.
You know what's going to be interesting, though, is like that's going to change because the Gus Bradley system is different. It'll be interesting to see how he fits the new system because they were charged with the way that our new head coach coached defense was get pressure at the front four, let those linebackers clean up anything that gets past that. And that's why those two guys had just combined for an enormous amount of sacks. That is going to change. So now is can they handle the blitzes and can they handle covering the tight ends? And I mean, I don't think Leonard's going to have any problem. That guy's a freak athlete, but
yeah, he can change anything. He
but
can
you're, you know, how is it? Okereke?
It's Okereke.
Yeah, I just
Okereke.
Yeah,
Okereke.
Okay.
He changed the pronounce. He told people how to pronounce it. So. All right, and then we have the other linebacker position. Zaire Franklin last year, 40 tackles, 1 interceptions, 2 pass deflects. I feel like that's where the weak spot is on our team a little bit. That's where the weak spot is. So,
if that's the one weak spot.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean. Like you can't be home run hitters at every position. Cornerback Kenny Moore, the second, 102 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 4 interceptions, and 13 pass deflects. He is one of the top tier, if not the best, nickelback that's in the league. We're going to have to see how that adjusts to our system that we're doing now from Gus Bradley's. So we'll have to see. So, but I love Kenny Moore. I think he's worth every penny, and we'll have to see how he adjusts. But he's a damn good player last year. Then you obviously have at strong safety Nick Cross, rookie. Where I love what he brings to it. Then you have free safety Rodney McLeod. Last year was 58 tackles, 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflects. You know, I mean, like I said,
you're losing me talking about your secondary here. Let's just move on to let's get to the juice of it all.
Cornerback Stephen Gilmore, 16 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflects, came from Carolina. Obviously, he had injury problems, only 8 games played.
We talked about him. He's good. Let's get to the nuts and bolts.
Okay, first off, I feel like we are going to win our division. I feel like we are, like people aren't talking about us like we are a Super Bowl contender, but we are absolutely a Super Bowl contender. We really are. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, okay. Win your division, of course. Like, I'm sorry, Titans fans. We'll talk about this in a future video, but I think you're going, like, I see regression there. I don't see advancement. I see regression. I feel like your team got better. I feel like we talked about last year, you had an extremely tough schedule. This year you have an extremely easy schedule in my mind. Schedule. It's one of the easier schedules out there.
Yeah.
You're in a conference where everybody's going to beat each other up, and you get to be the one division that you could get out in front early, push for that
number 1 seed.
Number 1 seed, and then close to the end. And I think there's some advantages. Sometimes that can be a disadvantage, but there's also some advantages to doing that. And so here's the deal. We've said this in every one of these videos all the teams we talked about that are contenders, this is the last of the AFC. We've talked about the Bills. We've talked about the Dolphins. We've talked about the Patriots. We talked about, almost every team
in the West.
In the West, and almost every team in the North. Pending what happens with Watson. There are so many playoff contenders and Super Bowl contenders in this conference that it's impossible to say I like their chances of going to the Super Bowl, because it's just too many. It's like liking your chances of winning at the roulette wheel. But you're in the conversation, and you're the only, in my opinion, the only team in this division in that conversation.
Yeah.
And you're right there in my mind with Buffalo and Kansas City and Oakland. And again, it's going to be brutal, but you have the best, in my opinion, because of the schedule, you have the best chance of being healthy. You have the best chance of
getting that number 1 seed.
Yeah, getting that bye week, which is important, which a lot of times that helps. Being able to play in the dome instead of outdoors in Buffalo. Who's going to want to do that? So I think that all of those set up for the potential for a Super Bowl run. It's definitely there. I think you're going to be a fun team to watch. And, yeah, that's my opinion as far as what to expect.
Yeah. I mean, look, we improved our team, and I think that our team was better than people gave it credit for last year. We should have made the playoffs. We didn't. But we have improved, and I think that we're going to make a push, and obviously I think we're in the conversation to win a Super Bowl. So the final thought is we always, I think sometimes we transition, we forget what we're doing here is talking about how was the offseason, and we start to think ahead. Which is, we all do that. That's fans, right? We want the games. We want the season to start. This is the offseason video. And in the offseason video, what I think you have to say is Chris Ballard has had 3 really good offseasons. I remember a couple years ago, you guys had the most free agent money in the league. And he did a very good job of not just throwing that around to a couple of high. He built a Super Bowl contender with that free agent money, with depth, with smart trades. So you got to give him huge upgrades. The only knock, I probably would have fired Frank Reich if it was me. But hey, you want to be loyal to your coaches. That's I don't think I would have fired Frank Reich yet. I don't think I would.
If it was me, I probably would have.
Now, again, do I think it's possible that he's on the hot seat going forward? If he does not change his things, then yes.
Look, if you guys don't win your division, he better get fired.
Absolutely.
Because you should 100% win your division. And I would even say if you don't win at least one playoff game, then I would take a long, strong look at firing him, because that mighty ass window is short.
Yeah.
You're in it right now.
Yeah.
You're in it right now. It's short. If Frank Wright ain't the guy, you need to figure that out this season and move on. If he is the guy, then it better show up. It better be proven.
Agreed.
Okay. Last thought on it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. If you got anything out of this, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Hey, I feel like the Colts fans are way outnumbered by my Bears fans. So we know you're watching the videos. We see the views. Hit subscribe. Give this guy some love. Hit some comments. Tell him he's wrong if he's wrong, especially Colts fans. If there's something you don't like about what he said, if he's right, tell him, hey, that's a great point. Let's get some feedback. Let's hit them comments.
The last person that told me I was wrong, I ended up being right. Maybe you're watching right now.
If you are watching, he was right.
Give me a like. Okay, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.